Hello everyone. I am sure you're wondering why I'm standing in front of this dilapidated building with a waterfall behind me. I mentioned in my last video I bought a new property with a new shop, and I shouldn't say new shop. This is a very, very old shop. This is in fact the blacksmith shop that used to serve this town. It's been sitting empty and dilapidated for many decades, and it is my goal that I'm going to turn it back into a full woodworking workshop with as much historical accuracy as I possibly can. So let's take a quick tour, shall we? So, starting on the outside of the building, you can see just the kind of rough condition that this building is in. The bones of it are still mostly in pretty good shape, as we'll see when we get inside, but it is rough on the outside. The siding, a lot of it needs to be replaced. You can see it's all falling up. The horizontal pieces up by the window there are all falling apart. The door doesn't close all the way. There's obviously plants and overgrowth happening everywhere. As we come to this side, this is the west side of the building that we're facing right now. You can see a little bit how the roof is sloping down towards the north there. Oh, church bells. So you can see how the roof of the shop slopes down a little bit towards the north side, and that is because, if it isn't obvious, the foundation on the north end of the building, which is over there, is mostly rotted away, and the goal to fix this is going to be to jack up this entire side of the building, the entire north side, about 8 to 10 inches depending on what it needs, and get everything something approaching square again. This building will never ever be square, but we can get it pretty close, I think. Obviously the window is a pretty obvious example too of just the slant of the building. Walking around, we can start to see just how bad some of the siding is at the bottom. I believe this is all white cedar siding, so I'm going to attempt to replace that as needed. It's actually in decent shape up to about window height, or the bottom of the window, but you can tell it's just rotting away or just eating away at the bottom. So there's a couple different methods I might use to deal with that, which we will find out as we go. Yeah, and so this is definitely the roughest side of the building as far as the foundation is concerned. You can tell there's just no sill beam left over there, or there is, but there's just no real foundation to it anymore. And all these rocks I think were just placed here after the fact. So a lot of work to be done on this side, and I'm definitely going to have to hire someone to help me jack up the building because I am not confident in my ability to do that myself. But now we're walking in, and I'm sure this is what you were all wanting to see. As you can see, it's a decent space in here. It's about 900 square feet, and there is a full second floor, which I will show you in a minute. And a lot of the remnants of the old blacksmith shop, they mostly shoed horses here and did similar things to that, just your sort of local blacksmith stuff. And I don't know what all of the implements are, so if anyone has any experience with this sort of thing, I'd love to, hear if you recognize, for instance, this big rotating bar that's coming down from the ceiling. It spins in a full circle. No idea what it's for. I assumed it had something to do with horses, but who knows. The original chimney is still mostly here. It is obviously not functional. The chimney does not extend through the roof anymore. They patched the roof at some point in the past. But you can see how there would have been all sorts of implements for blacksmithing here. Again, not super familiar with the process, but I imagine the embers would have been down in the center. My plan here is, since I'm not going to be able to insulate the walls because of the lovely masonry that I don't want to cover up, I will probably put a wood stove right here and use the chimney as sort of a facade for the stovepipe, if that is possible. Some old storage racks. The previous owners were kind enough to leave me a lot of their old original benches. I don't know how old these are, but I imagine probably over 100 at least. I don't know exactly when this building was built. I know the house that I now live in was built in 1820. I don't think this building is as old as the house, but it is probably somewhere in that vicinity. I would imagine pre-Civil War at least. And you can see all the brickwork was made right here in Brandon, Vermont. And you can tell because it is labeled as such. This sliding door, I believe, with the original hardware. I don't think the door is original. A couple of these old signs around too. I'll have to clean these up, try to keep them. So you can see, tons of space compared to my old shop, and nice high ceilings. It's probably about 12-foot ceilings, maybe 11. So this will actually be a really, really nice space. Obviously, there is no electricity. The walls are barely intact, but the timber framing, from what I can tell, looks to be in good shape. And actually, most of the masonry just needs a little bit of touch-up work. It's just a few areas along the back wall especially and under the windows here, where the masonry's chipped out over time. So I'm going to have to get all that fixed. But once that's good to go and I get electricity in here, this will be a pretty formidable shop, I think. As you can see, all of my tools are just kind of loosely piled in the middle because I didn't have anywhere else to put them. Let's take a quick journey upstairs, shall we? So you can see the ladder's more than slightly janky. I think that will be moved eventually. So this is not the sturdiest contraption in the history of time. I imagine it was very robust at one point. But it's a little dodgy now, so that will be getting replaced in part or in full. So this is the upstairs. It's obviously the entire building. And it's pretty tall in here, actually. Probably about a full height ceiling for the center 12 or so feet of the room. Now, I'm a little anxious walking around up here, I won't lie to you. The center of it feels a bit like a trampoline because these joists are covering about 25 feet of width. So eventually I will be putting in a center beam on the bottom floor to help cover that up. Obviously it is just filthy up here, needs to be cleaned out. You can see the remnants of the old chimney. Someone at some point, probably in the past couple decades, did put in these rebar tie rods. I don't know how well you can see them. But there are steel plates on the outside of the building that's bolted to and through. Comes around, they're welded here and in a couple places along. And go all the way around. And I'm guessing, well I'm not guessing, I can tell you that the reason for that is to keep the building from kind of pancaking out as the foundation gets worse. So hopefully we can make these unnecessary. I'm going to leave them in one way or the other and then probably build a false floor over them. Haven't quite figured that one out yet. And you can see there are numerous holes in the ceiling, especially there. The roof is actually largely in pretty good shape. There are a couple places you can see daylight right there, a couple spots in the ridge. But for its age, it's a slate roof and it's actually in reasonably good nick. My goal up here would be to turn this into more of a multi-use office and or kind of general purpose area. I think with insulation, with replaced siding, this could actually clean up into a really good spot. Maybe even guest housing at some point. But definitely at least my office being up here would be convenient, just because that way I could be down in the shop and then pop up whenever I want. So, I apologize it's difficult to see too much. Again, no lights yet, but I wanted to show you this as it was and go from there. Lots of work to be done. Oh, and this is a box full of old LPs. So, there you go. Yeah. Unfortunately, one of the tie rods is right at the top of the staircase. So they got some nice safety pink tape there. So, yeah, I think most likely the staircase is going to end up along that wall, maybe where that hole already is. Just because right here is not a terribly convenient spot for it. And also because there's a tie rod coming up. So I'll probably have it come opposite direction it currently comes. And have a little landing up there. But we'll see. It also depends how close I can get away with it being to the slant of the roof. Windows are all obviously in rough shape and are probably going to need to be replaced too, if that weren't obvious. So obviously this is an immense undertaking that I've gotten myself into. It's going to be hundreds and thousands of hours of work to get this done and probably a similar amount of money. But the good news is my house is actually in pretty okay shape. It needs some work, but I can live there comfortably and focus on this as sort of my fixer-upper. So the first big task is obviously going to be jacking up the building. I'm still calling contractors. If any of you happen to know anyone in Vermont or upstate New York or maybe New Hampshire that might be willing to come out and give me a hand with this, please let me know. It just, I'll take any names I can get at this point. A lot of contractors are booked solid, and if I want to get this into a functional workshop by the end of this year, I'm going to need to get that done, because I can't really move on. I can't fix the roof, I can't do the masonry or the windows until the building is back in its actual position. But besides that, it's obviously just going to be a ton of cleanup work, dealing with the siding, all of these things. And pretty much everything that's wooden, I'm pretty confident I can do. Everything else, we'll see. May have to hire some help. And if any of you personally are in the Vermont, upstate New York area and want to drop by and help me out for a day or two, I would be more than happy to arrange that. So, on that note, please subscribe because there's going to be lots of episodes of this series coming out. Hopefully more regularly than my normal schedule, but we'll see. It depends on when I can get stuff done. And I will see you in the next one, where we will fix up an old blacksmith into a woodshop. Very exciting stuff. Take care.